Good morning, class, or good afternoon. Uh, Today I'm going to discuss my presentation over Edward Thorndike. Thorndike was an important psychologist. He changed the way we think about learning and behavior. Thorndike is real famous for an idea known as law of effect. Uh, Basically, what that is it says that rewards and consequences shape how people act. For example, in one of his experiments, he put some cats in puzzle boxes and basically showed through trial and error how, in the end, rewarding this cat allowed them to escape from this box. Uh, his ideas inspired other psychologists as well, and a lot of them are actually still used today in teaching, uh, including myself. I've realized that I actually use some of the ideas that he put out. So, like I mentioned before, Thorndike was a psychologist, and he was one of the pioneers in educational psychology. I mentioned he used cats for puzzle boxes, and his experiments helped develop the ideas of what is known as operant conditioning, which was later expanded by B.F. Skinner, who is best known for developing the theory of behaviorism. Operant conditioning is a learning method that uses rewards and punishments to modify behavior. Uh, Thorndike also supported educational reform and highlighted the need to measure intelligence and achievement to improve teaching. His research led to the development of what is now known as the laws or principle of learning, which some of us have may have already learned in one or two of our classes. So, Thorndike was born on August 31st, 1874, in a town known as Williamsburg, Massachusetts. Uh, he grew up in a family that valued education. His father was a Methodist minister who started off as a lawyer, which meant for Edward and his siblings, they were raised with a strong focus on learning and discipline. Uh, there were three Thorndike brothers. There was Ashley, Lynn, and Edward. And actually, in the end, all of them ended up teaching at Columbia University. Due to their father being a minister, they did move a lot. And Edward's mother was Abigail Brewster Ladd. His father, due to being a minister, he expected the children to be good examples for others. And because of this, all the siblings did great in school. They got scholarships for college. They all ended up, in simple terms, being somebody. So I mentioned Thorndike moving schools a lot. He went to Lowell, Massachusetts Common School, Roxbury Latin School, which was in Boston or is in Boston, and then he also went to the Classical High School in Providence, Rhode Island, where he actually spent an extra year of high school to complete his graduate requirements. Despite all this moving, a lot of times you see people moving from school to school to school. It's hard for them to keep up with their work. But one thing about Edward is even throughout all of this, he still won prizes in English literature, Latin, Greek, psychology, English composition, junior debate, junior exhibition. So he actually was able to stay on his work. He showed early interest in math and language, and he developed a curiosity about human behavior and learning at a pretty young age. Once Thorndike finished high school, he ended up going to Wesleyan University in 1895, where he received his bachelor degree in physics. Then he went on to Harvard in 1897, and he got his master's degree in animal behavior. And then in 1898, he decided he wanted his PhD, so he went to Columbia University. He got his PhD in psychology, and his thesis was animal intelligence, an experimental study of the associated processes in animals. Fun fact about Columbia, he actually ended up teaching at Columbia down the road, which I will get into briefly. So for Thorndike's career, uh, he was kind of back and forth at first. He accepted a low-paying position as a special lecturer at Western Reserves College for Women in Cleveland, Ohio. Then a year later, he joined the Teachers College, which I had mentioned prior. It's at Columbia University. Uh, he taught elements of psychology, school hygiene, child study, genetic psychology, educational psychology, and psychology of school subjects. In 1904, he was actually made a full professor. Uh, At this job, he conducted groundbreaking research on animal and human learning, and he also was able to develop theories on transfer of learning and individual differences. Despite being as busy as he was, Thorndike did manage to marry. He married a woman named Elizabeth Moulton. Elizabeth went by Beth, and they married in 1900. They had 5 children. They had Elizabeth, Edward, Robert, and Alan, and they also had Virginia, but Virginia died 10 days after birth. All 4 living children did end up earning PhDs, just like Edward's brothers. They went off to be somebody. Elizabeth became a mathematician. Of course, Edward was a physicist. Robert Ladd became a psychologist, and Alan became a physicist. Interestingly, Robert actually followed in his footsteps and became a professor at Teachers College. As I mentioned, Edward was somehow able to still balance family life with his academic career, despite everything going on with research and all of that. So Thorndike had 3 laws of connectionism. Uh, he had the law of effect, which says that behaviors followed by satisfying consequences are more likely to be repeated. He also had the law of exercise, which was repetition strengthens connections between stimuli and responses. And then he also had the law of readiness, which that says learning is most effective when a person is ready and motivated to learn. I know as educators, we hope for that every single day with our students. So I'm sure a lot of people are asking, okay, he's got all these theories. Well, how do these theories work? How do these laws work? Well, Thorndike actually used an example or experiment where he looked at how animals learn by trying different things until they find the right answer. He was able to placed a hungry cat into a box and gave it food when it got out. And eventually that cat was like, well, hold on now. If I can get out and get food, then I'm going to keep doing that. So for the exercise law, or the law of exercise, uh, basically the cat tried various actions within the box until it accidentally triggered the mechanism to escape, which illustrated the trial and error nature of learning. Everybody deals with trial and error. And then the effect, law of effect, the food was provided when the cat escaped, and it acted as a positive reinforcement. It strengthened the connection between a specific action, like pulling the lever, and the positive outcome, which was getting the food. And then you have the law of readiness, which basically says over repeated trials, the cat progressively got faster at escaping, which demonstrated a typical learning curve, basically saying the more you try, the better you get. So Thorndike also had other contributions. His work was the first to put the study of learning and education on a scientific basis. He emphasized experimental approaches to the study of learning. There was a lot more that he did. He talked about how people learn in different ways. Uh, he, oh, a big one, he condemned the measuring intelligence, uh, or that measuring intelligence is challenging due to varying definitions. He pointed out that book smarts do not necessarily lead to a real-world success, and proposed 3 types of intelligence, which was mechanical, social, and abstract. And he also ended up developing the handwriting scale, which is still used today. Some people that influenced Thorndike, William James, Thorndike, or James actually is who had Thorndike decide to switch his study uh, concentration to psychology. Then you had William Wundt. His approach to studying conscious experience laid the groundwork for people like Thorndike. And then you had James Cattle, and James Cattle is actually who Thorndike worked under at Columbia University. Cattle was very important on empirical research and measurement. So Thorndike's later career, he ended up becoming the president of the American Psychological Association. His testing methods were used by the U.S. Army in World War One. He published a lot of books, but he was also known for holding pretty anti-Semitic views, as well as promoting eugenics. So the eugenics movement, that focused on improving the human race through selective breeding. James Cattle was part of it. Francis Galton was the creator. And then you got Thorndike, and there were several others as well. It was actually adopted by the Nazis during World War II to justify their treatment of Jews and disabled people and other minority groups. Like other eugenicists, Thorndike continued to believe in the superiority of the white race and even called for the creation of separate schools and different curriculums for black Americans. Um, despite everything that he did do, I did find that this is one that I didn't really care for too much. So the final years, he retired from Columbia University in 1940. As I said, he published over 500 student dictionaries, articles, textbooks, course materials, and other works until his death. And unfortunately, he passed away on August 9, 1949 in Montrose, New York. He left a lasting impact on educational psychology and teaching practices. Thorndike's research showed that people learn gradually over time through trial. Thorndike's influence on current teaching practices. His work helps teachers know how to check how well students are learning and doing in school. This is important for seeing how students are doing and changing teaching methods to help different learners. His research also helps us to understand how students learn better. He found that when good things happen after certain actions, those actions are more likely to be done again. This idea helps teachers figure out how to encourage and motivate students. And just an extra slide that I threw in. How can I use Thorndike's theories in my classroom? Well, with law and effect, using things like praise, rewards, or special privileges to encourage students to do well and achieve their goals. That's a big one. Law of exercise. It's important for me to have regular practice sections so students can keep using what they learn. This helps them remember better. And then law of readiness. Basically, it's saying I need to understand that each student learns different at different speeds. By putting them in groups based on their abilities of interest, I can help them learn at a pace that suits them best.